Do you remember being invited to a wedding as a kid? I do. There was a big focus on choosing the right clothes, ironing the clothes, getting dressed without creasing the clothes, and attempting to stay like that before we all left the house. I was told to mind my manners, and it was good etiquette to tell the bride that she looked beautiful. And after that, to be seen and not heard. Granted, it was a different time back then, and there weren't the many different options that are now available to cater to and entertain the littlies. But I also know enough to understand that there is a very fine line between the intention of including kids in your wedding. You know, that it's a rite of passage, it makes your wedding more family orientated, family friendly, and something to be remembered forever. And the reality. I'm talking tantrums during the vows, muddy slacks, and unauthorised premature access to the wedding cake, lolly display, or dance floor, to name but a few. And so today I've brought in the big guns. Tess from Calm Play is a wedding nanny specialist with a relationship-based approach. Tess is about to teach you how to cater for different age groups when planning activities for kids at your wedding with some affordable yet effective examples, which safety and hazard reduction measures you should be considering, how she handles screen time and device use, plus how she manages any meltdowns or tantrums. For me, personally, after our interview, Tess left a lasting impression and how I now think about interacting with my daughter and any other children that I come into contact with. And I'd like to think that I'm a little bit more prepared and a little bit less reactive. So thank you, Tess. I know you'll get the ton of value from our chat too. Let's get stuck into it. Unbridely is a community of pro-wedding vendors who believe in freedom and integrity in weddings, giving you options, solutions, tips and tricks to create the experience and memories that you and your fiancé really want and deserve. Because we believe that weddings are a team sport. With how-tos, stories and interviews with recently married couples, we find out what went right and what they'd change if they could go back and do it all over again. I'm Camille and welcome to the Unbridely podcast. Hi Tessa, thank you so much for joining me on the Unbridely podcast. I know that your wedding season has kicked off already and you're in super high demand. So I really appreciate you putting aside a little bit of time this morning to come on and chat about kids.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so excited and so grateful that you asked me to be on your podcast.
Mate, no, it's the other way round because as I was just saying before I press record, I'm a celebrant, it's my day job. And so I'm running around chatting with all these other wedding vendors and I've heard through the grapevine locally here in South Australia that if you've got kids at a wedding, you've got to get Tessa. And I'm like, really? Who is this Tessa of which you speak? And so, that's why I reached out. I heard that you are the child whisperer.
Yes, I have been called that before. I've been called the baby whisperer. I've been called Mary Poppins of weddings, the wedding nanny. So I've got that trademark now.
Brilliant.
So a lot of people get confused about, a wedding nanny and a childminder. So it's a little bit complex.
Excellent point, Tessa. Just before you dive into that, perhaps if you share with the listener who you are, what you do, how you've come to be the owner of Calm Play.
Yeah, so I started Calm Play back in 2022 after working in childcare for a long time and, long daycare settings. I just kind of got to a point where my philosophies and my values weren't aligning. So I really just, took a step back and ended up resigning from my position and took about 2 months off and just trying to figure out, what am I doing? Where can I go? And it wasn't until I really sat down and acknowledged my skill set. I was like, all right, Tess, what can you do? How can I foster my creativity? How can I, care for children as well, but not in a long daycare setting and environment? And then It wasn't until I went for a walk one day and I was just like, I had an epiphany. I was like, I want to start my own nannying business. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to put myself out there. And that's what I did. So I kind of came back and I was super excited. I told my partner, I was like, oh, I'm going to start my own nannying business. He's like, oh, okay, all right, great. You do you. And so I was very lucky that I'd actually had a product-based business on Instagram. So I was selling different products, children's products, wall hangings, things like that. And then I ended up just changing everything on my Instagram and Facebook. And then I ended up getting a name, and Calm Play was evolved. So, yeah, that's how it came about. And I went on to a Facebook group and I managed to get some nannying families on board. So, yeah, just advertised my services. And within, 6 weeks, I was fully booked with nannying.
Wow.
So I just couldn't believe it and realized that there was such a need out there, supporting families in their homes. And I think after COVID times, there was a lot of families and parents working from home, and a lot of parents, not sending their children to daycare and things like that. So, yeah, I saw a need out there and I just, went with it.
I love that. That's so good, Tess. So within the nannying role in Calm Play, how did you find yourself in weddings looking after kids?
So I ended up going out for lunch one day with a friend and I said to her, I want to care for children at weddings. I think that'd be really fun. Like, how fun would that be? None of my friends are getting married, so this is my chance to go to weddings, right? And so I told her that and she's like, all right, Tess, I reckon you could. It was about 2 weeks later and I got an inquiries form come through my website and it was a client from interstate. And she said, look, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. I've got 9 children coming to my wedding and I don't know what to do with them. And I was like, leave it up to me. So
wait a minute. So you put it out into the universe?
Yeah.
And then it just rocked up in your email inbox?
Yeah.
God.
Amazing. My friend actually messaged me. She's like, how did that even happen? I'm like, I don't know.
But I'm really grateful. And so how did that first wedding go?
Oh, it was amazing. I ended up talking to the client through email and we had a phone call. She told me about, the different families that were coming, told me a few things about the children as well and what she wanted, at her wedding. She let me know like the time of events that were happening throughout. She wanted me to look after mainly her child who was under 2. So supervising her child mostly. So, and there was just lots of cousins coming. But yeah, we came up with a game plan. And afterwards, I just got the most amazing testimonial and personal satisfaction. And I just, felt like, I was on the right path. So, 2 months into Calm Play, it was all happening. Happened really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's such a good sign when you go and test a business idea out in the real world and people can't get enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that a lot of the listeners of the Unbridled podcast, some have kids before they get married, some don't, but a lot of couples are inviting, cousins' kids, brothers' kids, all the children to the wedding. When you think about that sort of environment, Tess, what should engaged couples keep in mind when they're planning to invite kids to their wedding?
So for me, I feel like it's about gathering as much information as you can. So that those first kind of couple of months that you're planning a wedding, what do you envision? How do you what do you envision for your wedding? And what does it look like with children being part of your special day? You could have children part of the ceremony, but not the reception. Or do you want them part of the reception, but only for like a couple of hours? Some of the key considerations are the environment, the venue, the safety aspects of it all. Are they going to be safe? Because that is number one.
Yes.
That's a question I ask myself, especially when I'm planning with a client. Are these children going to be safe in this environment? And especially for a venue that I haven't been to before, I always make sure I do, the safety checks and hazard checks. And for clients planning their wedding, they really need to think about those aspects, especially if like you want them part of the reception. Is there going to be enough space for them? What are you going to do when they're feeling tired? What role do the children play? Do you have a flower girl? Do you have a ring bearer? How much do you want those children to be involved in your wedding? But also, if you don't have children, that's okay too, because you might have nieces and nephews and extended family coming from interstate or, internationally. So there's a lot of clients that I work with that don't have children and they are catering for their families.
Yeah, you're right. It's because some people go, yeah, bring the kids, but they kind of mean they want them to be seen and not heard and sort of shoved away in a corner somewhere, which might work depending on, what you're doing with them, Tess.
Yeah, I think it's about expectations. So, what do you expect from the other families as well? Because if you have children part of your reception, you still want them to be supervised by, their parents. And we all know that weddings can get a little bit crazy. The alcohol is flowing. So you've got to be quite mindful of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Supervision's a big one.
Yes. Okay. Safety first and your vision. And so I imagine that different age groups of different children, like you mentioned there, Tess, with the first wedding that you did, that the couple's child was, a toddler and they really wanted, good, proper, constant supervision for them. But then, maybe the nieces and nephews were a bit older. How do you cater to those different age groups?
Yeah, so again, it's just gathering all the information, how many children are going to be there, the ages. I need to be mindful of, ratios. So you've just got to be mindful of, the ages. So, the 1-to-4 ratios. But you've also got to be mindful of the temperament of the children as well. You might have children that are really high energy. So
No, I can imagine. I just had this vision in my head. And also, Tess, I've spoken to an amazing wedding dog chaperone that's based here in Adelaide from I Do Pause.
Yeah.
And a lot of these same things actually ring true.
Yeah.
But the problem is with the kids, you just can't put them all on a leash and go, yeah, I've got 12 of them, I'm fine.
No, and it just really depends on the temperament, being able to have that, meet and greet beforehand so you can actually meet the child, especially if it's a baby or a 2-year-old that age. So,
can I ask then, Tess, during a meet and greet, what is it you're trying to achieve there?
I really feel like it's based on connection. That first meet and greet is connection, communication, expectation, talking about what you envision for the wedding and just trying to create a bond, I suppose, trying to break the ice a little bit with the child as well. Yeah. So I try and do these probably about a week or two beforehand. And then, the child is familiar with my face at the wedding. So those meet and greets I highly recommend for sure, because it really is the foundation of that connection.
And trust, I'm guessing, as well, from the
and
littlies.
Trust, absolutely. So, and then just going over the timeline of events from the hours that they want me there. Do they want me after the ceremony? Do they want me beforehand? I'm pretty much a fly on the wall through the ceremony. I just kind of stand back and watch them get married. But also, if they've stipulated, hey, I've got a runner, I need you there. If my child's not going to sit with their granddad or grandma, I'm going to run after them, which has happened before.
That's great. Yeah, bring your sneakers, Tess. We're going to need you.
I know.
Okay, as much info as possible. That meet and greet's important. And so would you be able to share for us some examples of interactive entertainment options that work well to keep kids engaged and out of their parents' hair throughout the event?
So again, I think it comes down to the environment. So there's lots of weddings that are outside. For interactive entertainment, you can have bouncy castles that, can have a supervised, person from the business. I think that's really handy because I can't do that. You can have party bags, you can have Play-Doh, you can have small world play, you can have different rugs, mats everywhere, you can have different tables set up. For example, last week I had 2 tables set up, and one was small table games, pinball machine, and then on the other side was drawing, colouring in sheets. But, again, that's what I mean about gathering the information, because I knew that I had like 4 or 5 older girls, and I gave them a project right from the start. I said, hey, I've got a keepsake book, and I'd love for you guys to go around through the night and get little messages from all the guests. You can draw pictures in the keepsake book. You can do some collage. You can put stickers in there. So a really great idea is having wedding craft on the table, because every time they just love it. And it's such a beautiful way for them to be interacting with, family members and different guests. And yeah, at the end of the night, the bride and the groom get this keepsake and they get to read it, the next day.
Such a beautiful memento, but also I love that idea of giving kids a mission and a purpose. Because
Absolutely.
otherwise, I'm sure, well, if you haven't seen them, Tess, I'm sure you've heard about them. When there's little kids at a wedding and there's like a dessert table or the cakes on display, a lolly bar. You know what I mean?
And it definitely comes down to like attention span, because we all know that children can't really sit still for too long. So having that space, especially in the reception area, for them to come back to is really good, because, the parents are right there as well. They can kind of supervise. But I think having mats and different baskets of toys that you can rotate throughout the night. For example, you have like the Duplo out for 2 hours and you see, no one playing with it. That's when you kind of pack it up and then bring something new in, and they get really excited. But yeah, being mindful of, little ones that do come in, and having age appropriate toys as well. Also, you wouldn't put Lego on a baby mat. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, just being mindful of that as well.
Of course, of course. Do you know what one of the biggest regrets of newly married couples is? They'll say, I wish I had more memories from my wedding day. It was my favourite day. And one of the smartest ways I've seen couples do this is by making sure that they arrange a quick, foolproof, and really simple way to collect and share their guests' wedding photos. Because if you think about it, with an average wedding of, say, 100 guests, with every one of them taking 5 photos or videos, I mean, they'll take much more, of course, but I'm talking about the good ones. That's an opportunity for you to collect and download 500 extra photos and videos of their perspective on your wedding day. The stuff that happened that you didn't even get to see. But your barriers are overly complicated instructions or processes. Let's face it, if it takes too long, forces your guest into registering, if you've got to use a certain social media platform, or it's just a pain in the ass. And I'm looking at you, Dropbox and Google Drive. Your family and friends just won't do it. And the tech fear and privacy concerns too, because no one wants to download yet another app that has a data breach. Never Miss Moments is an essential resource for busy soon-to-be weds just like you. Your unlimited photo and video gallery is held in a secure server for 12 months, and for your guests, it's a one-click QR code solution. There's no app to download, no need to register, and it's quick. Win-win. Your guests will be able to look back on and reminisce about your wedding, and your fam and friends' different perspectives of your wedding day is such an incredible lifelong gift for you too. The team at Never Miss Moments are obsessed with giving you the very best customer service, and I'm stoked to be able to pass on their special 10% off discount offer on their galleries when you go to nevermissmoments.com/unbridely. So that's never miss moments, all one word, .com/unbridely, which, in case you don't already know, UNBRIDELY. The discount will show up in your cart automatically. And of course, I'll pop the link in the show notes for you as well. I mean, it sounds like you've got a little portable child wrangling studio that, you're sort of shipping around town. to keep everyone entertained. And I'm guessing that's probably the biggest plus of hiring someone like you within calm play or DIYing a solution. But perhaps you can talk about the pros and cons of hiring a professional versus, setting up your own.
Absolutely. So DIY, anyone can do, right? Anyone can just jump on Pinterest, get some ideas. But I guess, does the bride take on that role? Or do you like designate someone else to do it? Someone in your family might want to do that. It's all time, right? And gathering all the resources. I am very lucky. I spent the first year of business collecting resources, buying resources, going to op shops, Kmart, loyal customer. Yeah, I think that's what does set me different to childminders or nannying agencies, because I do have, the resources. So if a client came to me and said, I've got 10 children, what can you do? And that's when I can say, hey, I can do this and this. And they're like, oh, okay, awesome.
Problem solved.
But anyone can do a DIY. It's not very difficult. Etsy have a huge range of wedding colouring in pages, different things. Or, some people do like personalised bags, things like that for the children. I think the difference being with me is that I'm there. I'm in the kids' space. Whether it be in the reception or in a designated room, I'm always there. And I think that's really important because I'm engaging with them. I'm making sure that their needs are met. I'm making sure that, they're not hungry, or if I need to change a nappy, I'm giving the parents peace of mind. That's what they want.
I'm guessing also, Tess, no judgment, but I'm guessing you're not drunk either.
I have been offered a few champagnes.
Sure.
I've had to decline. Got to be on the ball.
But surely, that's the hardest thing, right? And that's one of the reasons why the parents can't really relax and, let go and enjoy themselves, is because they're responsible for these little people. It must be amazing to know that they're just over there. They're happy as.
Yes.
They're safe.
Yeah.
They're cared for.
I feel very lucky at the end of the night because I know that I've done a great job, and I know that, the bride and groom are happy, when they come up to me and hug me, and they're really appreciative of my services. So, and it's also just taking the role of someone else. They want everyone to have a good time at a wedding. They want their mums and dads, aunties and uncles, friends and family to just have a really good time without having to worry about the children. So, it is that peace of mind factor.
It's a gift to everyone at the wedding because it's not just the parents. Because, of course, if a child is left unsupervised, then everyone's on edge.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're so much more, Tess, than just a well-worn-out loyalty card to Kmart. Yeah, I would put myself and my skills a bit higher than that. You've got qualifications. Isn't there like legal requirements here in South Australia, like about CPR and things like that? And
absolutely, yeah.
So many other factors. And so, yes, safety measures. If parents are going, well, I'd love to have Tess, but we're in Illinois, what safety measures should couples be considering when planning their kid-friendly activities?
Yeah, so again, it comes down to the environment, coming down to the space that they've got. Is it fenced? Have they, done a walkthrough of the venue beforehand? And again, that's about gathering information and figuring out how many children you're going to have at the wedding. And again, just looking out for those hazards. Do they have a lake nearby? Do they have a dam, which I know of some venues do have a couple of big dams, being aware of that.
They've got to look at it with parents' eyes though, don't they? Even if they're not parents themselves.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, do a walkthrough, but they're doing a walkthrough as an engaged couple. I'm imagining they need to squat down. They need to go, okay, I'm an escapee who takes advantage of every situation. What trouble can I do here?
Even with like fireplaces, I've been to a venue before. I've walked in and the fire's on and there's no guards. And I'm just like, Oh, guys, we put the aircon on or the heater on or something. I can't have a fire going when, there's children around. So,
Yes.
yeah. When you start going to venues a lot, you start to know the venue. So you kind of can look out for those hazards a bit more and you know where to look.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I also imagine, Tess, like, you're saying if you've got, babies and stuff, you don't put the Lego out
Yeah.
because massive choking hazard.
Yeah.
But then, I'm also thinking if you've got some older kids there and you're trying to make a space that is
Mm.
inviting for them, that you might have devices. What's your feeling about devices or TVs or
So I personally don't have any devices that I bring to my weddings. I don't have an iPad. My children don't have iPads. They probably want one. But yeah, I really haven't seen too many children at weddings with devices, to be honest, which is awesome. It might be a testament to my services because, I've got an exciting, engaging kid space. But, I do say to the parent, look, if your child needs to have 10 minutes on a screen, go for it. If you want to give them your phone to calm down or they're overtired, or just having a moment, that's fine. I do find like if a child does have a device, you might get another child trying to, watch in. But yeah, it's just something that I do talk about at the meet and greet as well. So I just tell them, look, I've got no screens. But in saying that, if I've got a big group of children and it's 9 o'clock at night, then, is there a TV in the room or in the space? Or, can I set up a movie projector, which I have done
Oh,
before as well.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's really fun. So the kids can kind of, sit down, get comfy, wind down, and have a little bit of quiet time and watch a movie.
And that gets me thinking then, Tess, about, those couples who are looking for budget-friendly ways to entertain kids. I would imagine, as long as someone's got a projector, of course, that would be, yeah, especially late at night when they've
Yeah.
done all their stuff, their brain's fried. They would probably normally sleep at home, but they're still at the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are some other budget-friendly ways that couples can have kids at their weddings entertained?
Yeah. So again, like Etsy is great for, printing your own colouring in sheets, making your own Play-Doh, and yeah, just maybe having some time to collect your own resources. If you're planning a wedding, say a year or two ahead, then you've got plenty of time if you want to, save some money for sure.
So, Tess, the adage in weddings and in movies and everywhere else is
Yeah.
never work with children and animals. I love them. I think they're great. But what do you do? Like, how should, couples and the guests at weddings be handling meltdowns and tantrums and things like that? What do you do?
I think it's just asking the parents and or the bride and groom right at the start, like, how's your child been today? Have they had a sleep? And yeah, again, just asking them like how their day was, because that's pretty much the first question I ask when I see them. I said, hey, how's your day? Have they had a sleep today? Have they had enough food?
You're taking the temperature early.
Yeah, so I try and gather that information to like set myself up, because if I know that a child hasn't had their day sleep, I know it can get a little bit, tricky. But yeah, again, it just comes down to age and temperament. I've had children at weddings who are under 5 and they party all night. They can stick it out. Like they're having a great time. I really haven't seen too many, to be honest. It's just about making that connection and nurturing them as best as I can in that environment, because it's a big day. Like weddings are a big day. Like they start from 6 a.m. getting ready and, lots of people in their face. Like if family members haven't seen that child for a long time.
A lot of unfamiliar faces.
Yeah, they're going, how you going? And they say their name 100 times. And they're just like, oh, overwhelmed. So it can get a little bit overstimulating for children. So, yeah, just being mindful of that and, just nurturing their needs, fostering what they need in the night.
If a child did have a meltdown, Tess, What's your instinct in that situation? Like, would you let them have their moment? Would you try to distract them? Or, would it just depend on the child and the situation and the parent? And
Yeah, it's definitely individual. So that's why I try and make that connection or create that bond right at the start because, they might come to me. They might come to me for a cuddle or they just want mum and dad. And when you're in a designated room or an Airbnb, that can be tricky. So, I do feel like I try my best, nurturing their emotions because, we all do know that children can have big emotions. So yeah, I just try and give them a cuddle and reassure them. But if they are distressed, I can call someone. There might be a person, emergency contact that they've given me going, hey, can you just call my bridesmaid? I don't, I'm busy. I'm busy dancing. Can you call someone else? So that's why I do get an emergency contact right at the start.
what I'm hearing, like what you've said in a few different answers, Tess, is that connection that you have with the child and the familiarity and the trust, that seems to trump everything else
Yeah,
that you've said. Is that fair?
definitely. Yeah. I hold connection and care and families so close to my heart because it's such a beautiful big day for everyone. And, you do want to make it special. You want to make sure that the kids are having fun. You don't want to be dealing with lots of big meltdowns and tantrums. You want the children to have fun because it's kind of their day too, in a way, because it's memorable, right? It's like, oh, how exciting. So, yeah, I really do hold my philosophy and my values and my skill set really close to my heart.
And it also sounds like you can't just shove a room full of toys and stimulation and activities and colouring in and Lego and Duplo and everything else. Like, that's actually not going to entertain
Yeah.
a bunch of kids.
I could set up the most amazing, beautifully aesthetic kids space, but it comes down to that foundation of building that relationship up with the client right from the start.
And leading these kids through it and sharing it with them. And
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
you hear that, don't you, in parenting books that, you can give your kids the world, but
Yeah.
all they really value is, well, when they're young, mine's growing up now, and she's like, I want that. And I'm like, oh my God. But when they're little, especially, they just want time with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would imagine that's where a lot of their joy comes from.
Absolutely. You're on the money.
That's so cool. If people are lucky enough to be having their wedding in South Australia and, if you're lucky enough to have a spot on your books, how do engaged couples find you, Tess?
Yeah, so I have quite a strong presence on Instagram. So you can find me under Calm Play, or you can head to my website, www.calmplay.com.au, or I'm on Facebook as well. Send me a message or fill out my inquiries form on my website. You can read all about me on my website. So I have lots of testimonials on there as well. But I think Instagram's such a great platform for me because I can show the client who I am. It's not just about the kids space, it's about my personality and my qualifications and my experience because now that I'm nearly in my third year, I've done a lot of weddings. And so they can ask me any question they want to. If they're going to a venue that they've never seen or been to before, they can ask me, hey, Tess, have you been there before? And I go, oh, yeah, that's an awesome place. But maybe just watch out for the dam so having that experience now, I can answer any question that they want to ask me about their plans for their wedding and having, children at weddings.
You're a goldmine, Tess. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to be running into you soon. Hopefully somewhere this season our paths will cross.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That about wraps it up for this episode of the Unbridely podcast. For the links and resources we mentioned, please head to the show notes. And if you love the show, please review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're on now so you don't miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, weddings are a team sport. Catch you soon.